You've probably seen it all over social media. Influencers claiming they're doing a dopamine fast to reset their brains. Productivity gurus promising that if you just avoid all pleasurable activities for a day or a week, you'll suddenly be able to focus on work and studying like never before. It sounds almost too good to be true, right? Well, spoiler alert, it is. I'm here to tell you the real story behind dopamine detox. And trust me, it's way more interesting than what these internet coaches are selling you. Because here's the thing. This whole trend didn't just come out of nowhere. It actually started inside a university created by a Harvard neuroscience professor. And that's what makes this whole situation so frustrating. Let me take you back to where this all began. Around 2018, the concept of digital detox started gaining traction. The idea was pretty straightforward. Spend less time on social media, gaming, and streaming services. Make room for reading, exercising, connecting with real people. Nothing revolutionary, just common sense lifestyle advice that most of us know we should probably follow. But then something happened in Silicon Valley. You know that place where everyone's obsessed with optimization and efficiency, where people treat themselves like computers that just need better programming? Well, they took this simple concept and gave it a sexy new name, dopamine fasting. And the person who coined that term was Cameron Sepper, a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, who previously taught at Harvard. Now here's where it gets wild. When Harvard's own website interviewed him about it, Sepper admitted something pretty remarkable. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, dopamine fasting has nothing to do with fasting and nothing to do with dopamine. Dopamine is just a mechanism that explains how addictions can be reinforced. Plus, it's a catchy title. Let that sink in for a moment. A neuroscience professor created a term he knew was scientifically inaccurate, specifically because it would grab attention. It was marketing from the start. But here's the problem. Once he threw that concept out into the internet, it took on a life of its own. Suddenly, you had lifestyle coaches, productivity influencers, and self-help gurus treating it like legitimate science. They started telling people, every time you watch a TikTok video, you get a hit of dopamine. You're basically a dopamine addict. You need to detox. Except that's not how any of this works. Not even close. So let me break down what dopamine actually does in your brain, because understanding this is crucial. Dopamine is not the pleasure molecule or the happiness chemical. That's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. Instead, dopamine is about salience, about what grabs your attention. Think of it this way. Imagine you're looking at a complex painting with lots of different elements. Suddenly, one part catches your eye. You focus on it. That's salience. But here's the question. Did the painting force you to look at that spot? Or did your brain decide that spot was interesting based on your past experiences? The answer is both. And that's where dopamine comes in. Dopamine acts like a spotlight in your brain, connecting your memories of past experiences with things in the present that seem familiar or potentially rewarding. It's not giving you pleasure, it's pointing your attention toward things that might be worth pursuing based on what you've enjoyed before. Neuroscientists distinguish between two types of responses in the reward system. There's wanting, which is aspirational, like seeing someone fit and healthy and thinking, I want to be like that. That's a long-term contemplative response. Then there's liking, which is the actual experience of enjoying something, like eating a delicious meal. These are different neural pathways, both involving dopamine, but working in completely different ways. And here's something that'll blow your mind. In the same area of your brain, dopamine can signal both reward and punishment, depending on which receptor it activates. There are 5 different types of dopamine receptors, and they do different things. In one area called the dorsal striatum, when dopamine hits the D1 receptor, it signals reward. When it hits the D2 receptor in the same area, it signals aversion. Same molecule, same location, opposite effects. So when someone tells you to do a dopamine fast, what exactly are you fasting from? You can't fast from dopamine. If you actually had no dopamine in your brain, you would die. Seriously. Dopamine regulates your breathing through your thalamus. It controls your sleep cycles through your hypothalamus. It's essential for movement, which is why Parkinson's disease, which involves dopamine dysfunction, causes tremors and motor problems. But let's say you try to follow the dopamine detox advice anyway. You avoid social media, you don't watch TV, you skip dessert, you don't play games. What's actually happening? Well, you might feel better, you might be more productive, but it's not because you reset your dopamine levels. It's because you changed your behavior patterns and your environment. You created space for other activities. You possibly connected more with real people. You reduced the time spent on genuinely addictive apps designed to keep you scrolling. In other words, the digital detox part works, but not for the dopamine reasons. It's behavioral change, pure and simple. Now, I want to explain something really important about why social media and games can feel so addictive, because there is real science here, just not the dopamine detox nonsense. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called melioration. It's about how we make choices between short-term and long-term rewards. Think about scrolling through Instagram or TikTok. The first few minutes feel great, but as you keep going, each additional story or video gives you slightly less pleasure than the last one. You're climbing a staircase where each step gets smaller and smaller. Eventually, you're barely getting any enjoyment, but stopping feels harder than just watching one more video. That's because switching to something else, like going back to work or studying, has a cost. And if that work is boring or unrewarding, the cost of switching is higher than the tiny bit of pleasure you still get from scrolling. This is the real trap. Not dopamine levels, but behavioral patterns. On the flip side, there are activities that work the opposite way. When you start learning to code, or practicing an instrument, or studying something difficult, it's hard. The initial steps are tiny. You feel like you're getting nowhere, but if you stick with it, those steps get bigger and bigger. The rewards compound over time. The real challenge of self-control isn't about managing your neurotransmitters. It's about choosing between activities that feel good now, but diminish quickly, versus activities that are hard now, but become increasingly rewarding. So what's the actual solution if you feel stuck in unhealthy patterns? Well, it's simple to describe, but hard to do. Reduce time on genuinely addictive platforms. Build in structure for more rewarding long-term activities. Find people to do those activities with, because group accountability helps with the difficult early stages. Make your environment work for you instead of against you. No mysticism required, no pseudoscientific fasting, just honest behavioral change. And maybe that's why the dopamine detox myth is so appealing. It's the same reason any wellness trend takes off. It promises a simple biological fix for complex life problems. It gives you a tribe to belong to. It makes you feel like you're doing something cutting edge and scientific. But here's what really frustrates me about this. When you tell people they can control their neurotransmitter levels through willpower, you're setting them up for failure. When someone with actual depression or ADHD tries a dopamine fast and it doesn't fix their problems, they might think they just didn't try hard enough, that they're weak, that they've failed. That's dangerous, because the real issue might be something that requires actual medical treatment, not lifestyle optimization. Look, I get it. Life feels overwhelming. Our attention is fragmented. We're drowning in stimulation. And there's definitely something to be said for taking breaks from technology, for being more intentional about how we spend our time. Those are real, valuable goals. You just don't need to wrap them in neuroscience cosplay to make them legitimate. The simple truth is enough. Too much passive consumption isn't good for you, and building skills takes consistent effort over time. That's it. No dopamine required.